'Cause all I needed was some coconut oil.
Oh! So I didn't switch them. Okay. Are you happy?
You just need some coconut oil. Some coconut oil. Oh. Pokemon Girl is in Alaska right now.
Oh, good.
Oh, we're recording.
Far away.
To those who don't know who Pokemon Girl is,
You don't wanna.
you don't wanna.
Welcome to our first real episode in October Spooky Ookie season.
Spooky Ookie season, Spocky October. Nope.
Look
Never
at
mind.
this.
What does it say?
It's the Great Pumpkin sweatshirt that I got from ModCloth. It says the Great Pumpkin is coming. It's my favorite fall sweatshirt.
You know what I learned today about Linus?
What's that?
Is that Linus?
I think so. Yes.
His last name is Van Pelt.
Oh, that's cute. Why on earth did you learn that today? It's noon. Like, where did you learn this?
On Wikipedia. I don't know how I got
Dear
there,
God.
though.
Listen, we spend our time very wisely.
Speaking of things I found online, I didn't find it online, but I gathered, I just want to tell everyone, I want everyone to be as involved as Christine is in my personal life.
Oh, great.
And
Go run away, guys. Run for the hills before
trust me,
it's too late.
She knows better, so she's telling you. I wanted to announce to everyone my top 10 that I sent you.
Oh, God. Here we go.
So it was 3 a.m. I got bored, so I decided I was going to create my top 10 celebrity list of all the women I would gladly marry. So here it is. Christine's already heard it, but I would like your...
I thought you were going to say Christine's number 3 on here. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right.
She's actually 11 out of 10. She barely, almost made it.
I'm working hard to reach that list.
I do want your opinion, though, because I like your take on these things.
I already gave you my opinion.
You might have changed them. Here we go. I just want people to know, like, you know, what's going on in my heart. Obviously, I'm in love with Brie Larson.
We know.
So.
We know that.
This is in no particular order, by the way. And the next one is Reese Witherspoon.
Sure, good answer.
Who I've loved since I was 6 years old. So that's nothing new.
Part of her little book club. Love it.
Rachel McAdams, I believe, is timeless.
She's like one of the most beautiful people in the world.
She can do no wrong, I'm pretty sure.
She really is gorgeous.
Gal Gadot.
Duh.
Elizabeth Olsen, who plays Scarlet Witch.
Sure.
She's pretty great. Jennifer Aniston, another timeless babe.
Oh, God.
Amelia Clark.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Emma Watson.
Always timeless.
And then these two ended up making it on the list that night, although they are interchangeable with a few others. So at 3 a.m. that night, I picked Megan Fox and Hayley Atwell, who plays Peggy Carter, Captain America's girlfriend. But I also am a big fan of Letitia Wright and Laverne Cox.
Sorry, you actually hit 10, so.
Okay. But I realized what all of them have in common.
What?
Because they're all kind of like, they all look a little different in some ways, but I like figured out like
what?
Okay, so here's the combo. Here's the
Tell me.
secret recipe to winning my love. They all have a great jawline.
Important.
They all have the trifecta combo of good eyebrows, can pull off dark red lipstick, and have the ability to smolder.
Smoldering.
They have the hourglass waist to hip ratio, and they all play characters that are confident women.
Okay, good. So I've hit maybe not one of those. I maybe had some decent eyebrows in high school. So that's about as far as I got on
That's
that
as far
list.
as you
Sorry.
go.
I'm
Yeah.
never going to make it on Em's list.
And that jawline, forget about it, Christine.
Listen, when I was younger, people used to make fun of my jawline and say I looked like the guy from AFI because it was like so pronounced. Because like I always have had kind of an aggressive jawline, and people
Look, apparently that's what I want.
I am telling you.
All
okay,
right.
so that's one more check on the list.
All right, there you go. You're
Look at
closer up there to Megan Fox now.
Finally.
It's all you've ever wanted.
Listen, I can't even count the number of guys that like I've either had crushes on or dated who are just obsessed with Megan Fox. I feel like that's the most like our generation high school boy thing ever.
I know. And
so I have always tried to live up to Megan Fox, and guess what? Here I am doing a free radio show in a sweatshirt with no bra on. So you know what? I think I've made it pretty far.
And you have at least one thing in common with Megan Fox, which is you're sometimes confident.
Including right now. This is the peak of my confidence.
Anyway, I only wanted to share that because I've been sharing that list with everybody. I think you were one of the first people I texted, and then
I feel special now.
It was 3 a.m. and you didn't respond for some reason, so I kept sending it to everyone. So I just thought everyone else should be involved.
I'm really happy for you.
Anyway, let me know if you end up finding your top 10 list. I'm sure people would want to hear that.
Yeah, I actually started thinking about it when you sent me that, so I'm gonna refine it.
Do you have a main person?
Not really. I feel like it's changed a lot. I need to really think about it before well, obviously. It's your waist to hip ratio. I just can't control myself.
Listen, I play a character of confidence. So.
Well, that's for sure. I also wanted to add before we get started that so we posted our listener episode on YouTube, and I was very proud of my Halloween logo that I made. And I sent it to my brother before the video posted, and he was like, "Why does it say thoat?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "That pumpkin makes it look like an O instead of, and that's why we drink." And I was like, "Oh shit." And so then I was like, well, maybe it'll be funny. I don't know. And so I posted it with the caveat in the description that we understand. Why we drink. Is that how you say it? I thought it was thoat.
No, thought.
Oh.
Two mistakes in one,
I'm
Kristen.
1,000. I'm sorry. Okay?
No, thoughties.
I thought it was okay, whatever. Listen, I don't know, but everyone keeps commenting about it. I'm like, I know I put it in the show description. I'm sorry. We're going to pretend I did it on purpose to be funny. If you don't know what that word is, go look at Urban Dictionary because I'm not here to explain it to you. I'm too old. I'm almost 30. Leave me alone. So I'm sorry, but I'm not changing it because it took me way too long to figure out how to do Photoshop. So that's that.
I mean, look, I've always wanted to be associated with thoughts in the title of my...
I thought it was...
I promise it's not.
Fuck. Okay, well, obviously I don't know anything. I love this. There's a podcast apparently.
Food for Thought.
Food for Thought. That's hysterical. I don't even know what they are, so I'm not endorsing whatever this is. I just saw it on Google.
Other than that, is there anything going on in your life, Christine?
Yeah.
That you want to share?
Well, a couple things. I wanted to let you know that something really magical has happened in a game I play called Stardew Valley. I've been blessed with a second child, and my wife and I mean, her name's Emily. Don't get it in your head.
Please don't.
Emily and she has blue hair. It's a whole thing. And she has a parrot. But anyway, so Emily and I got married, and we adopted a child. Our first child was named Wumbus III after my void chicken and cow. And then I just was blessed with a second child, and it said, Christine, sweetie, or X-Teen, sorry, that's my name in the game. X-Teen, sweetie, what would you like to name our second child? And I thought, I'm going to name my child M.
No, you didn't.
M Jr. And so now little M Jr. and I are bonding.
Wait a minute. Well, that's actually precious.
And you're this cute little boy, and
that's the truth.
Run around the house really fast, and it scares me, so I have to leave the house a lot.
That's exactly how it used to be, too.
So, exactly. And
you and my mom have something to text about now.
And so I just wanted to let you know I named my second born after you.
Oh, that's so precious. I did not see that coming.
I'm doing this now so that in a few years I don't actually have to name my child after you.
That hurts. Never mind. I went from precious to just downright mean.
I'm just kidding, but
here's the thing. I don't understand this game at all. Christine and Eva both play it, and I hear them talk about the most like acid trip experiences.
I'm like, oh, well, Grandpa came to visit me in the Diamond Cave, and I was like, what's happening?
Like, what tales are you telling under a bridge?
Eva's like, I gave Sebastian some sashimi. It's his favorite food. I think we're going to get married.
The only story I've been able to retain somehow is that Eva walked up to a different... This is me saying it without understanding the concept at all.
I can't wait.
It sounds to me that once your character in the game is, like, destined for one other person, like your soulmate, and the only way to, like, let the soulmate know that you're their soulmate is to throw food at them.
Yeah.
And so at one point Eva found her soulmate in the game named Sebastian, and she walked around with a giant plate of spaghetti and then like threw it at Sebastian, and now they're like what's the thing in Twilight where you're like connected for life or something?
You're like bonded. I don't remember the word.
It sounds like it's that kind of game.
Well,
apparently Christine bonded with some girl named Emily with blue hair.
Well, she had a parrot. I couldn't help myself. But even I did learn that you can divorce people in the game, and so I want to really recreate your childhood, and I'm going to divorce your mother.
Oh, okay. Sure, let's do it. Let's make it
maybe
weird.
Bring Sebastian into the picture.
That would be actually very akin to my
Thank you.
my childhood.
I'm trying very hard.
There would be somehow, I don't know how, but the drama sounds at the right level. But,
I hope the parrot stays. I don't think the parrot's going to stay if I get rid of Emily, but...
Well, who knows? Custody is a tricky thing. But because I don't understand this game at all, by you naming a character after me, I'm now almost like obligated to actually learn what this
I think it's more fun if you don't, though. It's more fun for me.
Just let me know when I start throwing spaghetti at people.
Yeah.
Or when they throw spaghetti at me. I want to know who I'm bonded to.
Yeah. I will say this, if you're like most people on the planet, including Em, you're like, what are they talking about? Skip. This is a game on the Switch that a lot of you recommended on Twitter, and I've both become like deeply obsessed to the point where I'll be on it like 2, and it's like Eva has joined and is online, and I'm like, thank God it's not just me. So it's a very fun game.
And I don't have a Switch, and I'm not really into video games at all, and so the two of them,
it's really bad.
When we were traveling, they would just have the most. I'm telling you, the most psychedelic conversations I've ever heard. And I had to sit in a goddamn car with them.
You were like having fever dreams on fever dreams.
You're like, what are you guys talking about? So anyway.
So that's that.
If you're lost, you're not alone, because I too am lost.
That's the update. We're all lost.
I will say I'm very honored that something is named after me in your life. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Now I've got to name something after you. That's awkward.
I know. Okay, sorry. We just had a little jump cut here. I don't know, because I had to ask him if this was like appropriate conversation. I don't know. But I did want to add, in addition to, I probably should have said this before, my Stardew Valley updates.
Yeah, it would have boded well if we said the sad thing first.
Sad thing, right. But unfortunately this past weekend, my Oma passed away in Austria. And it was very, I don't know. We're recording late because of this, and I apologize to Em and Eva for editing. But it was just a rough weekend, and I took it a lot harder than I thought because we knew she was sick for a long time. She's been sick for 14 years with like Alzheimer's and dementia.
That sucks.
And so like we've known for a very long time that this was coming, but for whatever reason on Saturday, it was like honestly, I think the reason it hit me so hard is I don't even know how to wrap my brain around this, but I was fine all morning, and Blaze had the day off, so we were like running around doing stuff, hanging out. I did some laundry. I threw the laundry in, and then all of a sudden I got like so overwhelmed with like full panic, and I was like, Blaze, I need to leave the house. So we went for a walk with the dogs, and like on the walk I started like hyperventilating, and Blaze was like, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know. I think I'm having I have panic disorder, but I haven't had a real like I have anxiety attacks, but not like a real panic attack in years. And so I was like, years maybe is an exaggeration, but in like
minutes,
maybe minutes. And so I had this I was like, I can't breathe. Like my heart is racing. I was like, I'm going to die. I have a heart attack. And Blaze is like, you're fine. Like, we'll get you home. And so we got home. I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I think I'm having like a real meltdown. Like, I don't know what's going on. And I like lay down in bed and just had this full blown meltdown, like conniption. Like Blaze was like, oh dear God. And like, he's seen me at my worst, mostly at my best, but also at my worst.
I can't wait for the day where I see that.
My best?
Your best.
It's never going to happen.
Even your most mediocre would suffice.
You look at this jawline and you be happy, okay?
And there's the confidence.
There it is. It's back.
Yeah.
Em draws it out of me. But I had this like meltdown, and it was like 6:00, and I started dry heaving. Like I was full blown panic, and Blaze like, what's like, everything's fine. And I was like, it's not. He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, my grandma died. And he's like, he's like, no, everything's fine. Like, just lay down. He like got me a Klonopin, and he was like, here you go. And I was like, this is love. He brought me like a LaCroix and a Klonopin. And like after a few minutes, I finally like settled down. I was like, whoa, sorry, I felt it. And I kept saying, I'm not here. Like I'm just I have also, you're learning a lot about me. I have like dissociative problems, and so I was like out of my body, and I was like, I'm not here. Like I feel like I'm in a well. And he was like, Jesus Christ. Like he was getting really freaked out.
Like quite a fast trip.
It was
down a deep well.
Yeah, I just like felt like I got sucked into like And I was like, it doesn't matter. But I was freaking out. And so finally I calmed down. And I was like, God, sorry. I'm back. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. And he was just laying with me. And then like 20 minutes later, I got a text from my uncle that was like, okay, I just want to let everyone know that like grandma just passed away about like half an hour ago, 3 a.m. their time, which is, and then I like Googled it and it was like 6:05 p.m. our time. And I was like, and I looked at Blaze and I was like, I told you. And he was like, how'd you know? I was like, I don't know. I just knew. And it was really weird because I was like, I didn't think it was going to be like bad. You know, it was a happy thing in a way because like she was really not in a good place and everything. Sure. But it was just so weirdly, I don't know. I felt like I was not here. Like it was very weird. And I think it just scared me a lot. And so anyway, so my mama passed away. I'm unfortunately unable to make it to the funeral. But she was a great lady, and she's up with my grandpa now.
What's your favorite story about her?
My mom actually, I called my mom and we were talking about her, and it's my dad's mom, but my mom back in the 90s when they first met, she visited Austria to meet her new husband, like my dad's parents, and she was like, I was so nervous, and I went and I bought a bouquet of flowers. Oh my God, it just got really dark in here.
It's your... Listen, your Oma, say something nice, quick.
Oh God. Yeah, I know. She's like, I don't like this story. My mom showed up with this bouquet of flowers and she's like, but it was so cold and like the heater wasn't working that the flowers froze in the car. And so she showed up with these like frozen flowers and my grandma was like, thank you. And apparently my grandma like pretended that they were perfectly fine and like put them in a vase and was like, they're so beautiful. And my mom's like, they were just like dead and frozen. And, no. She's like, that's kind of foreshadowing maybe for the marriage. But
sure.
In any case, yeah. So I don't know. I didn't know them as well as most of my cousins, which is also why I'm a little bit weirded out that I like had that weird connection.
Yeah. Do you think she was a spiritual person?
It actually... weirdly in my family that's the side of the family where like my aunt always has weird dreams about what everyone's doing, and like I often dream, like my grandpa comes to me a lot in my dreams. Like that whole family is just kind of in this weird like dimension where they're all like it's very weird. I don't know, and I never felt like I was part of that. So
she proved you're wrong.
Apparently, she showed up and gave me a freaking panic attack, so thanks.
Well, your mom gave her frozen flowers, so
maybe it was all to
tit
get
for
back
tat.
At me. Anyway, I know that was long. I'm sorry. I just wanted to throw it out there because I feel like by next week, we'll have moved on, and I just wanted to give her a little shout out. And
oh, look, and the light's coming back.
Holy cannoli! Anyway, I hope Oma and Opa are happy and healthy.
All right,
and together.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a sharing circle.
I love a good sharing circle.
I'll pass the talking stick to you.
Ooh.
The talking frozen bouquet.
Nothing I love more than a frozen bouquet. Okay, so my story is one you're going to like. I'm already...
Thank God, it better be.
I'm afraid you already looked at the title of it.
I didn't.
You?
No.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
You're
usually sneaky on the eyes.
No, sometimes I do, but now I blur my eyes. If I happen to look at your computer, I intentionally blur my eyes like a crazy person because I know otherwise I'll like accidentally read it.
Oh, good.
I haven't seen it.
Well, I mentioned it by accident. Not by accident. It was in my notes, so pretty intentionally.
No, most of the things, even if they're in our notes, most of the things we say are accidental.
Well, I mentioned it, and it might have been last week's story. I'm having a hard time remembering where I place it in my notes. But you mentioned that you told me to cover it a long time ago, and I had never had.
Is it from Loveland?
Yeah.
Ooh, the Loveland frog person,
yes.
right?
So,
oh my God, I'm excited.
So this is the Loveland Frogman.
The Loveland Frogman.
/ the Loveland Frogmen.
Oh, see, I don't know anything about it because I remember when we first started the podcast, my dad's friend Patrick, who they play table tennis together. They started a table tennis club. It's a whole thing. But he lives in Loveland, and he told my dad, like, you have to tell Christina, or he's like, can I have Christina's email address? I have to speak to her. My dad was like, sure, here's her social security number and phone number, etc. And so Patrick Hinder wrote to me and said, you need to cover this Loveland. And we were 2 weeks into the show, and I was like, I don't even know anything about this, or I don't even do paranormal. So anyway, we're finally here, Patrick.
Finally here. It's not too long of a story, but it's still good.
Okay.
So this is an urban legend in Loveland, Ohio.
Woo, woo.
It's also known sometimes as the Loveland Lizard.
Okay.
Fun fact. So they're usually, I feel like with urban legends, everyone has a story about seeing the creature.
Right.
But apparently this cryptid, they only really fall back on 3 different reports or 3 different sightings. So the first...
Really?
Yeah. So the first time that the Loveland Frogmen were seen was in 1955, also the year that Marty McFly's parents fell in love.
I mean, look at that.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
It can't be a coincidence, right?
If it was on November 5th, 1955, that day was bananas.
That's Gio's
in
birthday.
history.
I mean...
Listen. That's why, for a Scorpio, it worked out, because there was a little Back to the Future love there.
That's true.
So in 1955, this was along the Little Miami River. I know you've heard of the Little Miami River.
Yes, it runs through Cincinnati.
It blows my mind as someone who never lived anywhere near Ohio. I always think Miami, Florida. And when I first met you and you kept telling me that blazing to Miami, I was like, I don't get how you fucking met then.
In Florida, no.
I never understood.
Yeah, it's sad. We have to say Miami, Ohio to be clear that we're not.
I never got it because you would
Miami.
always tell the story, and at some point I was like, I just have to pretend like I understand.
Oh no!
Because you were like, oh yeah, well he went to Miami, and so we always met.
Like obviously, you know.
Like, well, I'm from Cincinnati, and he went to Miami, so we were so close, and I was like, what? No, you weren't.
I just flew, idiot. No wonder you have all those Delta Sky Miles, idiot. No.
I was so confused, and eventually I was just like, apparently they just really had no problem traveling.
It was like I believe a Native American tribe, and so the name is.
I hear you,
but yes, it is confusing. I agree.
But when I was reading my notes, it kept saying Little Miami River, and I was like, every
Blaze.
time I just think of my confusion for the first full year that we were friends.
Oh my god, I didn't know that. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
A very confusing
just
person.
If you are not from the area, Miami is also in Ohio. It's not just Florida. So it's along the Little Miami River, 1955, and the first story goes that a local businessman saw 3 frog-like men with leathery skin, webbed hands and feet at the side of the road.
Okay.
The businessman watches them talk to each other, and then one of them lifts up a cylindrical metal object.
Ew.
And holds it like a wand, and sparks fly out of it. And the businessman runs away.
The guy's like, no, like my shocks of my car are broken. Help. You asshole.
So that's literally the whole first story. So
okay.
The different versions of that story, some say that it was an unnamed road. Some say it was in the neighborhood called Branch Hill. Some say it was on a bridge. It probably was on a bridge. That seems to be most of the storylines. But there are so many bridges near the river that it's impossible to know which one. So the entire story is a guy somewhere seeing... it's very vague. And you don't even know the name of the guy. You don't know the date. All you know is it's 1955.
Okay.
So there's already a lot of plot holes there of not being able to figure out any details or corroborate it in any way.
Right.
The original story was that, there's these humanoid frogs running around. But because of the cylindrical metal object or the wand, that immediately started swaying people to suggest that the creatures were extraterrestrials.
Aliens!
So it's a cryptid / alien, depending on what part of the story you're focused on.
Okay.
So the next story, or the next sighting, was several years later in 1972. This one was on March 3rd at 1 a.m., so already a lot more detail. Mm-hmm. The Loveland Police Department had an officer named Ray Shockey, who was driving on Riverside Drive, and apparently he saw an unidentified animal run in front of his car, and he stopped his car before hitting it. Uh-oh. But in his headlights, he did see that the creature was 4 feet tall. It was 60 pounds and had leathery skin, around 60 pounds. So Ray went to the police station and drove. He was like freaked out. He drove back with his friend, and his friend was named Officer Mark Matthews. He ended up going back to the police station and trying to get one of his friends, because apparently after he almost hit the creature with his car, the creature moved around the car and then crouched like a frog. And then it stood upright, climbed over the guardrail while staring at him. And then headed towards the river. So that was enough to make him want to go to the police station and bring someone back there to look around.
Right.
In some variations of the story, when they did come back to... when they came back to the site where he saw this creature, the whole area smelled like almonds and alfalfa.
Oh, whoa. What a specific...
So I guess that's part of the legend now. If you smell almonds or alfalfa, that means that a frogman is near.
That or someone's been poisoned with cyanide.
Or that. Let's remember that.
Both pretty awful.
Both are terrible and leave the vicinity.
Maybe don't stay in
If
Ohio.
you smell almonds, run and run fast. So when they went back to the location where Ray Shockey saw this creature, they did find scratch marks and scrape marks leading down towards the river where the creature had run off. And that was all that they found. It could have been from anything, but
True.
could have also been from this thing. Mark Matthews, his friend, said, quote, "Naturally, I didn't believe him, but I could somehow tell from his demeanor that he did see something."
It's like that same with Zanfretto where they're like, I know this guy, like something shook him up.
Yeah,
right?
something's not right.
Okay.
Even if it's not, I don't know what it is, but clearly something to really get him stirred up.
Right.
So then 2 weeks later, Mark Matthews actually had his own experience where he saw an unidentified animal dead in the road. And so he went to move it to the side of the road to stay away from traffic. But as soon as he opened the his car door to get out, the door squeaked open and the animal freaked out and got up trying to run away.
Ooh.
Because it heard a loud sound. The animal also crouched like he was a football player, allegedly.
Okay.
And then he tried climbing over the guardrail again. But Mark Matthews freaked out and he didn't know what to do. He just knew it was an unidentified animal. It freaked out his friend 2 weeks prior, so he shot it.
No, I was like, oh, I know where this is going.
But it escaped. Mark assumed that it must have died later of the bullet wound or eventually just from the cold weather because it was still icy outside, apparently. These encounters, the two from Ray and Mark,
right.
They have much more detail. They have exact dates, times, and Matthews is a witness to Ray Shockey. So some say that Ray Shockey is actually a fake alias for the actual cop who just didn't want to be known by the story, and they just picked a random name. And they're like, oh, his name's Ray Shockey, and so that became the legendary cop that saw him. But it's just an anonymous random name that they assigned him.
Okay.
But there was, I think it was on Skeptoid podcast. They tried to do as much research as they could, and they did find a Ray Shockey who was, quote, born in Loveland in 1928 and died in Loveland in 2014.
Oh.
Who served on the Loveland Police Department for 40 years.
No way.
Beginning in 1971, the year before the sighting.
No way. So he was a newbie, too.
He probably existed.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay.
In 1999, Mark Matthews actually, changed his tune. And he explained that he was tired about talking about the Frogman, and what he actually just saw was an iguana.
You can come up with a better story than an iguana.
So both
in Ohio in the frozen temperatures of December. Okay.
And so, but both men did confirm originally that they saw an upright humanoid lizard that they even both had sketches made of their sightings. And like they were both giant frogmen. They were bipedal, leathery skin. So now he's just saying it's an iguana.
It's like that thing where people just won't leave you alone. So you're like, I wish I'd never said anything.
That's what the internet thinks happens.
I see,
that he's backing away from it now.
And that's
because
what we think, I bet.
That's what I think.
That's what we think.
I'm always going to be on the side of the believer.
The weirder story.
So in 2001, during an email interview, Mark Matthews actually spoke even more openly about it. This was 2 years after he said it was just an iguana. And he explained that the incident was, quote, habitually blown out of proportion. Okay. He also said, it was and is no monster. It was not leathery or had wet matted fur. First of all, no one said that to begin with, but okay.
You're just adding more specifics to this. So
You're making it weirder. You're making it weirder.
Exactly.
It was not 3 to 5 feet tall. It did not stand erect. The animal I saw was obviously some type of lizard that someone had as a pet that either got too large for its aquarium or escaped by accident, or they simply got tired of it. It was less than 3 feet in length, ran across the road, and was probably blinded by my headlights. It presented no aggressive action. So he's just making up I don't know if he's making it up, but he's telling a whole other story now.
Okay. Which is also really sad. Like, and someone just dumped their pet. I don't like that.
Yeah, it doesn't make it better. It just makes it sad in a different way.
And got shot. Like, I don't like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So people assume was either freaked out by the creature or just tired of being like a spectacle in the news. Right. So he's just changing the story. But he could also be telling the truth. There's really no proof either one way or the other. In 2016, he stood his ground again And he contacted WCPO because they ran a story on him, about the Loveland Frogmen. And he came back and said, again, the creature did not walk upright. It walked on all four legs. He's quoted saying, "It's a big hoax. There's a logical explanation for everything." He says, again, that it was probably just an escaped pet that was living by a nearby factory for its warm pipes because it was still cold outside. But in that same year, on August 3rd in 2016, the era of Pokemon Go, two teenagers, Sam Jacobs and his girlfriend, were playing Pokemon Go between Madeira Road and Madeira Road.
That's where Renee grew up.
Oh, well, there you go.
Aw.
History is happening.
How precious.
Madeira Road and Lake Isabella.
Oh, my God. Sorry, that's where we'd go on Mother's Day every year.
Oh, so
to go
sweet.
fishing.
Well, apparently...
Uh-oh.
Sam Jacobs and his girlfriend were playing Pokemon Go in that area, and that's when they saw a giant frog near the lake that apparently, quote, stood up and walked on its hind legs.
Oh, sorry, that was me. It was Mother's Day.
It was actually just someone really reenacting Pokemon Go.
I went through a hard time in high school, okay? My skin was a little bit leathery. Leave me alone.
Dare I mention that I nicknamed you Kermit in my phone?
That's true. Listen, I'm getting a lot of shit about my jawline. I talked
Kermit the Frog has a great jawline. What are you talking about?
Thank you.
It's not easy being green.
It's not. I tell you what.
So Sam Jacobs was quoted saying, "We saw a huge frog near the water, an actual giant frog. I took a couple pictures and videos because I'd never seen one that big. Then the thing stood up and walked on its hind legs. I swear on my grandmother's grave that this is the truth. I'm not sure whether it was a frogman or just a giant frog. Either way, I've never seen anything like it."
And it walked on its...
Walking
even if
away
it's
on
a giant frog,
Yeah, absolutely not.
Not okay.
So there have been a few other reports that aren't really taken seriously, but if you really wanted to argue that the Frogman is real, then these stories usually come into play. One report is right after Mark Matthews had his experience, there was a local farmer that reported a large frog-like or lizard-like creature during the same month. He said that its eyes were large and circular, the skin was a pale greenish gray, and its mouth was wide with sharp teeth.
Ooh. Question real quick.
Yeah.
Did the Pokemon Go guy ever post the photos anywhere?
I think he did. I couldn't find it. It's a lot of people suggest it's a hoax though. So
sure, okay.
I don't know how believable
if you're gonna say, "Oh, I took videos and photos," you better step up.
I'm sure you can find it online somewhere.
Okay.
I couldn't find it.
Sure. Okay. I didn't know if we were gonna green screen it.
No.
Frogman. I'm sure I'll green screen some
footage.
Something.
There'll be something
We'll
here.
film it ourselves.
Actually, we'll just put a picture of Kermit the Frog.
You put me dancing.
Just do the video of Kermit dancing. The one that I always send you.
Oh, you just do me dancing. It's easier to film.
Do a side by side.
Oh no.
So also in 1955, all the way back in the very first year when there was a sighting of the Frogman, apparently there is a story of a woman named Mrs. Johnson who was swimming in the Ohio River in Evansville, Indiana.
Big mistake.
Well, while swimming, there was a creature that attacked her from under the water.
Told you.
And tried pulling her down by her leg.
Oh my God.
Eventually, she was able to kick away after a lot of struggle and swam to shore, but there were contusions in her leg and a green palm print that seemed to stain her skin for days.
Ew.
So, and for some reason that is the Loveland Frogmen, but a lot of the arguments are that, yeah, I think the main connection is that the Little Miami River drains into the Ohio River. Mm-hmm. And so they think oh, well, he could just be swimming around in all the water and just grab you.
Like lazy rivering down on an inner tube, yeah.
But basically, there was never any sign that he was aggressive. There's never been any story like that before.
Right.
And Evansville is 240 miles away from the other sightings. They just kind of threw it in, I guess, because only a couple months before there was the stories began of this Loveland Frogman. So I think it just kind of got connected that way. Uh-huh. But it was so distance-wise far away, and it was the only thing we have of it showing any aggression. So it doesn't really sound like it's MO, if you will.
Weird. But if there were multiple too, remember, they said at the beginning, if there were multiple, maybe they were just spread out.
Maybe. But also the biggest argument is like, okay, well, you were in the Ohio River where there's massive catfish and snapping turtles.
Yeah, it's not a great place to go swimming. It's
And
also quite dirty.
a green handprint could just be like a series of bruises from getting attacked.
True.
So the argument is not
But
strong.
by a hand?
I don't know.
Oh, God. I don't know.
Yeah,
Either way, it's
I don't
fucked
know.
up. If there's a person down there, it's also scary. I'm just going to be
terrifying.
honest.
But yeah, so it's not usually a strong argument, but if you're trying to find additional arguments, it's used. Allegedly, there's no Native American folklore of this creature. I'm pretty sure there is no Native American folklore. I don't want to come off as ignorant, though. There is an alleged story of a creature like this, and I say alleged because there's a lot of talk that there was never folklore about this until the Frogman showed up, and now they're trying to use
corroborating.
folklore. They're like creating a folklore.
Got it.
To
like a backstory
to validate. Yeah, it sounds like there was no story until there was a Frogman, and then they were like, oh yeah, well, you know, this and this happened.
Haven't you heard?
Right, exactly. So the alleged folklore is of a creature named Shawna Hawk, which apparently means river demon.
Oh, well, there you go.
The stories of this creature start in the 17th century when the Shawnee and Twi'ti tribes warned French settlers about it. Apparently, Shawna Hawk, it's Shawnahoc. Shawna Hawk apparently is a large bipedal reptile that lives in the Little Miami River, who is a hairless humanoid frog with dark, wrinkled, slimy, bumpy skin. So it sounds kind of like on brand.
It does fit.
Apparently, Shawna Hawk threatened the natives until they fought him off, and it went into hiding until the natives eventually were moved from the territory.
Wow.
They say it's alleged because it was only referenced after the fact that frogmen came out. So they say like, oh yeah, well they were talking about it in the 17th century, but they also weren't talking about it really until 1955.
I see.
So apparently I think this is also Skeptoid Podcast. They did a lot of research to figure out if they could even find Shawna Hawk, and they can't confirm that it actually means river demon. There's no like native words that actually make up the phrase Shawna Hawk.
There you go.
Even after trying to translate the word using Shawnee and like Algonquin languages, it just like doesn't really fit. That could also be totally wrong, but I'm going to go with the people who researched it the most. Their quote,
Probably smart.
Their quote is, Shawna Hawk is, quote, likely a false appeal of antiquity or the wisdom of the ancients, as well as a possible attaching of Sasquatch-esque to Frogman.
So they're just like appropriating this culture and being like, look.
Exactly.
Oh, that's fucked.
So there are no articles or police reports from 1955 or earlier or later on online archives, but the argument could be that those reports were just never digitized, so they do exist, but you just can't find them online.
Sure.
Also, weather reports do suggest that it was probably cold and icy out, but the argument then is, well, if anything reptilian was out there during that kind of weather, it would have not been able to like handle that weather.
Right.
Because usually frogs and reptiles are like hibernating and shit, right?
Yeah.
Frogs hibernate. That I know.
I mean, and they live in like warm, moist. Yeah.
So it doesn't really make sense to like, okay, if the weather was that bad, why was there a reptile just hanging out in the middle of the road?
Running around ice skating? No, thanks.
So if people were to assume that it was this massive reptile, the largest lizard in the region is a broad-headed skink, but it's so small compared to a 4 foot.
Aren't they like...
Yeah, it's like you can hold it.
Yeah.
There's also a common wall lizard, which was introduced to the region in 1950. So the argument there is it may not be the biggest, but it wasn't
a newer...
It was a newer species that no one was familiar with in the 50s. So maybe they saw it and freaked out.
Sure.
But it's also still small. It's still smaller than the largest lizard, which was also small.
Right. So, okay. Interesting.
So one of the other arguments is just the one that always works is dog mange.
Sure.
Where with mange, the animal ends up getting hair loss and scabs, and it kind of looks like it's got like leather skin because of all of its wounds.
Sad.
So they think it could have been a coyote, or it could have been a coy dog, which is like a breed between a domestic dog and a coyote. Oh. Because if that had mange, it would look even weirder and more unknown.
Sure. And coyotes have that like skeletal.
Yeah, and they can be in packs or they can ride solo.
And we got a lot of those in OH.
Yes.
Ride solo. Yikes.
It could also, if you're really trying to like stretch it that far, they could be lizard people from another planet because
Oh, right. I forgot that was part of this.
Because a lot of people do think that it's probably an alien or that they're somehow extraterrestrials. And in a lot of UFO abductions, a lot of people say they see lizard men on board.
Lizard-like, yeah.
So it could...
Oh, remember that one? Oh, wait. You already... Is this what it was? Where you saw a large frog and we were like, oh, it might be from another planet and all this?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Whatever that story was.
That's Zanfretta's story.
Yeah.
Okay,
so they thought that maybe it was
got it.
Loveland Frogman.
That's where that came in. Okay.
Thank you for that.
I just totally forgot the connection.
So they think it could be a UFO extraterrestrial.
Sure.
That was either researching Earth or crash landed on Earth or I don't know. Something along those lines. The stories are more believed that this thing actually existed in 1955. It just happened to be the perfect year for people to like just agree that these stories are real and that the sightings really happened. Because the year before, The Creature from the Black Lagoon came out.
Oh, no way. Okay.
So there's just like probably a mass conspiracy that sort of happened where they socialized it and then people thought they saw something near the water and
it's that
just
thing
turned
of
into
like,
a thing.
Where you hear about it and you're like, huh, like what you're talking about Bridgewater Triangle, how it like starts a web of, and then the person in Evanston is like, oh, I also saw it. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So
interesting.
That seems to be the main argument of like, it's just like kind of a mob mentality.
It's, pretty weird timing otherwise.
That a year after that movie came out, people are now seeing something.
Yeah.
It's usually described as an American tall tale like Paul Bunyan. And it's
classic though.
It's definitely more of a legend than a cryptid or an alien. But it's, it's still like a big legend in the area. Loveland, Ohio actually adopted the Frogman as their mascot. They have a lot of teams called Frogmen. They have marathons, like the Frogman 5K and shit. In 2010, there was a movie called The Legend of the Loveland Frogmen, created by someone who actually lives in Loveland.
Was it Patrick?
No.
Okay.
It was actually just you and your dad.
It might have been.
In 2014, this is the thing I need to go check out immediately. In 2014, a bluegrass musical came out called Hot Damn, It's the Loveland Frog.
Get out of here.
Which I need to see.
Get out of here.
And in 2019, a band in Atlanta called Old Sweater wrote a song called Loveland Frogman.
Old Sweater?
So that's everything I got. But
I love that. I love that story. I never heard about it until we started the show, and people from Cincinnati were like, cover the Loveland Frogman. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I handled it.
Wow. Okay. There's also a castle in Loveland, the Loveland Castle.
Yeah, that got mentioned a lot in the story. I just actively didn't read it.
Good. That sounds about right.
I'll figure it out. I'll bring it up somehow, some way, in another form.
I'll bring it up. Don't worry. Okay. I guess it's my turn.
It is.
So this is a story that I have actually had bookmarked again since like the beginning of the show.
Oh, that's
sometimes
fun.
I go through my old like bookmarks on Chrome and I like just click old links that I was like, I don't know why I saved this. And this was one of them. And I was like, how have I never covered this?
Oh, bingo.
Bingo bango. This is the story of James Lloyd, the Rotherham Shoe Rapist.
Ooh.
Bringing things down, as usual.
I was going to say, that sentence started really happily. And then
it did, didn't it?
It took a dive quick.
Yeah. Well, needless to say, I've now deleted it from my bookmarks. So
okay, well.
My computer's a little cleaner.
Sure.
Okay, so I figured out how to say Rotherham. It's spelled Rotherham, but it's like in England, so you say things the way they're not spelled. Rotherham.
Yeah.
The Rotherham Shoe Rapist.
Okay. Well, we all say that the same, apparently.
that word, unfortunately, is
just
the same.
Rotherham is the tricky one.
Yeah, across all languages. Okay, so this takes place in the metropolitan borough of South Yorkshire, England. Mm-hmm. For 4 years in the 1980s, a man stalked the streets of South Yorkshire, terrorizing women who were walking home after a night out. So this would typically occur in the early hours of the morning. A man would lay in wait as women walked from clubs or bars, and when they were alone, the man would grab them from behind, drag them off the street to secluded areas, tie their hands behind their backs with stockings and tights, and then gag them also with stockings and tights.
Oh my God.
And would then sexually assault them. He would take his time with the victims because they'd be in a secluded area, and so it was just terrorizing these women. And then he would leave the woman behind alive, but he would take her shoes with him, as well as often their jewelry, purses, and perfume. So this is kind of the MO, was this guy's doing this and taking the women's shoes with him.
Got it.
So most of the women were in their teens and early 20s, but the victims' ages ranged from 18 to 54. Police tried even at the time, so police were on this at the time, in the 80s. They used a decoy to try and snare the rapist. They had a woman wandering alone in the streets in high heels, hoping that this guy would jump out and attack. It did not work. They then spoke to victims to try and create a composite sketch of the attacker, and they released that to the media, but still no hits. And then after this whole wave of attacks, leaving women in fear, panic, suddenly and inexplicably the attacks stopped.
Oh.
So at the time, the crimes were also featured on BBC's Crime Watch, and that actually prompted 350 names to be called into authorities. But while several suspects were identified and interviewed, not one person was apprehended. None of them fit. They either had an alibi or it just wasn't the right guy.
Huh.
And eventually the case grew cold, especially because the attacks had already stopped. It wasn't until years later that the case again gained some traction, and this was in the early 2000s. I know I've talked about this a lot, but like DNA profiling, forensic DNA became a thing. And so a lot of places started opening cold cases and trying to see if they could strike up matches on things that had grown cold since back in the day. So they actually produced a list of over 40 individuals who could possibly be connected based on the DNA of the semen left at the crime scene. So thank God, again, that they saved this DNA back in the day, and not even knowing what it would be, how useful it would be.
Just keeping it and just being like, hopefully
maybe
something will come from this.
Exactly. And like preserved it properly, because a lot of times that'll happen and then it'll be like degraded or it won't work anymore. So thankfully they had some DNA left, and so they created a list of 40 people who could possibly somehow be connected to the case. And they went knocking on doors, basically. And like just on the third door on the third house that they went to, they met a woman. This is in 2001. And she had actually, her DNA had been collected after she was arrested for a drunk driving conviction. And when her DNA was provided to police, it struck a match to a person on their 40-person list. And the DNA was almost an identical match to the long-lost Rotherham Shoe Rapist, a man who happened to be this woman's brother.
Ooh,
so
that's not good.
She gets arrested just on a whim for a drunk driving charge, and suddenly, bingo bango, even though this other guy has never been put in the system, because of familial DNA profiling, they're able to connect them. So it's been 17 years since the case had kind of grown cold, and finally police had a name. The guy's name was James Lloyd. He was a local family man from Thurnscoe, I think it's pronounced. We'll see. If you yell at me,
we'll know.
We'll know one way or the other. A local family man from Thurnscoe in South Yorkshire, and a loving father of two. Now, these phrases are actual ones that I pulled from the article. So, like, I'm not putting my spin on this. I'm reading what the media spin was on this.
Oh, God. Okay.
Loving father of two. He was a manager at Dearn Valley Printers, a printing firm where he'd worked since the age of 15. He was regarded as a, quote, pillar of the community.
Mm-hmm, they always are.
Always. It's like laughable at this point. If you know a pillar of the community,
just be nervous.
Call the police, please.
Just be like, we should check it out. Just check it out.
I live next to this guy named Jim. He's a pillar of the community. I think he should be arrested.
If you're a pillar of the community, just offer up your fingerprints now.
Just do.
Just to save everyone
Clear
trouble
your
later.
Name, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a loving, normal neighbor.
If you're as normal as they come, I'm watching you.
Yep, we are. We don't like it. We don't like it one bit. Okay, so in the Yorkshire Post, he was actually called a paragon of virtue.
Oh, me too.
Obviously not. Like, why are you calling him that?
Yikes.
He proved exactly the opposite. Okay.
Can you change my name in your phone to Paragon of Virtue?
If you delete the Kermit thing.
No.
That's never going to happen, huh?
No.
If you can put me as the AFI lead singer. And
just the jawline, though. I'll just zoom in on the jawline.
People used to print that out.
Really?
In the fucking computer lab. I know. People listen. I had a hard time in high school. Just listen. There's a reason I listened to AFI. And it's not because I looked like the singer. Okay. So, this guy's sister, she is like called in on this, has no idea about any of this with her brother. So she calls her brother and is like, hey, the police are going to come ask for your DNA. Like, they're saying that you're linked to some sort of crimes from the 80s. So she calls him and tells him. After he finds out the police are onto him, Lloyd calls his father and says, look after my children. I have committed a series of offenses 20 years ago. Then attempts to take his own life by hanging in the garage. However, the suicide attempt was stopped when his son found him in the garage as he came home from school.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Talk about traumatic. Police immediately swoop in to investigate. Turns out not only did James Lloyd work at a local printing shop, he had also taken on a second job as a taxi driver, where he would roam the streets at night, interestingly.
Okay, now I see.
To kind of cover up why he was out of the house late at night and that kind of thing. When police searched his home, they found nothing.
Did they?
At all. But then his wife inadvertently tipped them off by mentioning how much time he spent at work at the printing firm he ran.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, great, we'll go there.
Let's go do some digging then.
Let's go do some digging. Police went straight to his workplace, Dern Valley Printers, and also found nothing. But then an employee explained, yeah, he spends a lot of time in his office, and he doesn't really like any of the employees going in there. And they're like, okay.
Jackpot.
Got it. A search of his office revealed, once again, nothing.
I don't like this game anymore.
They found a trap door. I know.
How do you even actually make a trap door?
I have no idea.
In a building surrounded by people?
And also, like, what constitutes a trap door? Because I'm like, a
Right.
trap door sounds like you're going to pull a lever and, like, Indiana Jones is
Right.
going to fall through it or something. That I don't know. Like, this seems less like a trap door and more like just like a closet full of terrible things.
Oh, okay.
I don't really know.
Like, just like a hole under there.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either. It's bad. It's all bad. So they found this quote-unquote trapdoor. In the trapdoor, there were hidden bags containing more than 100 pairs of high-heeled shoes, as well as stockings and tights that Lloyd had used to tie up his victims.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, not a fun trapdoor.
No.
So Detective Inspector Angela Wright, who was actually credited with catching Lloyd and was at the scene when they discovered all this, was later quoted as saying, I just remember them bringing these shoes down. It was marvelous. I knew then we finally had our man. So they were watching as detectives literally, or police literally just dragged down bags of these shoes from his office. Like, it's just so creepy. So some of the shoes looked like they had been purchased on like shoe fetish websites and had never been worn. And she said even like were so absurd that like a woman probably couldn't even wear them because they were like created as like to look at, not to wear.
Sure. Display shoes.
Yes. Display them in your trap door.
Yes, exactly.
But she said many of the shoes had obviously been worn and they did belong to someone at one point, which was like very unsettling.
Oh, no.
So back in the 80s, detectives had actually asked the question whether the shoes were taken just to slow the woman down, like if that was the reason he stole their shoes, or to stop her from escaping. But now they finally had their answer. No, these were trophies, and he was keeping them after he attacked his victims.
Awful.
Basically his undoing. According to Detective Inspector Wright, some of the shoes were indeed identified by victims as their own shoes from the 80s.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine?
That's terrible.
I just got chills from that. Like, they would literally look through hundreds of pairs of shoes and say, those were mine.
Those were mine.
He took those from me. It's really, really, really scary.
Oh my God.
So when asked about the significant number of shoes recovered, Detective Wright said, there may be other victims who haven't come forward. There probably are. So they are searching, they're pulling out all these shoes, these tights, etc. They also find a document called The Perfect Victim.
What?
Oh, God. The document detailed rapes identical to those committed by Lloyd, and it also described the trussing up, which is like the tying up with like tying your limbs behind you and stuff like that.
Ugh.
The trussing up and raping of women in the way Lloyd carried out his attacks. But it was not clear whether Lloyd wrote the document himself or whether he just had it and copied it. Like, it's not clear who wrote the document, but it clearly described attacks exactly the way that he did them.
Wow.
I imagine he wrote it. I don't know why else. I mean, they didn't seem to find any copies anywhere else, so I don't know why else it would exist. But
oh my gosh,
they couldn't confirm for sure that he had written it. So interestingly, while he was active in the 80s, like I said, remember the attacks just like suddenly stopped inexplicably.
You get married?
Yep, exactly.
They always do.
They always do. Apparently, he stopped his crimes when he got married and started a family.
At least he's committed to his wife.
Well, yes.
Never mind.
Exactly. That is exactly true. Part of the reason may be explained by a series of videos they found in Lloyd's possessions. The videos show him and his wife, Pat, having sex. She was often tied up and appeared to be comatose, while Lloyd was extremely interested in the stilettos she was wearing and would replace them if one fell off. And the videos also allegedly showed Lloyd using stilettos as part of penetrative sex. And obviously, this is not wrong in any way because the wife said, I was a willing participant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
This was not attacking.
You should preface that.
Sorry. Okay.
Well,
they found the videos and they were like, holy shit. And then they talked to her and she's like, no, I know about the videos. Like, I was part of it.
I thought he was filming them. You said she looked comatose,
yes.
and I assumed she was unconscious.
They did too. So that's why I didn't preface it because like they saw this and thought, oh my God, he's drugging his wife and attacking her.
That's what I thought too.
She herself said she consented to all the acts in the videos. She wasn't being drugged.
Got it.
It was like role play. But the point of that story is basically it may explain why his attacks on strangers stopped because he was like
able to do it with his wife.
This exactly at home with Pat. So when he was arrested, Lloyd told officers, I knew that was coming. I was a bastard 20 years ago. So like he had been basically knowing eventually he would get arrested, but
how can
hadn't
you not
attacked in 20 years. So it's like really creepy. It's like it's like Golden State Killer. Like he's just sitting in his house like for decades.
Yeah.
And then finally, years after the attacks even stopped, someone just shows up and is like, we finally found you. So he basically was like, yep, I did it.
Wow.
He hadn't attacked, like I said, a woman in, I think, 17 years at this point, and he probably would have remained free to this day if either his sister hadn't been arrested on a drunk driving charge or if he hadn't had his undoing of collecting trophies.
Sure.
Collecting, because if they hadn't found anything in his house, office, or etc., like they wouldn't have been able to pin this on him. And this is especially true considering how normal and a pillar of the community this guy was.
Yep.
So I actually got a bunch of quotes because this seems to be like a very, it's like, it seems to be just one of the favorite things for the news to write about, like how normal he was, you know?
Okay, let's hear it.
I feel like it's just such a classic story, like the everyday, or the girl next door.
The common man.
The common guy that hosted barbecues.
All-American next-door neighbor.
Totally, hiding a secret. Like, it's just one of the best, like the favorite spins that newspapers put on these stories. So I'm going to read some of the, the clips that I found to describe how normal this guy was. So, let's see. Former neighbors said, quote, "We can hardly believe it. It doesn't seem real that someone like Jim could do something like that. He was a typical family man, just a hardworking bloke."
Oh my God, okay.
Just a hardworking bloke who seemed decent. He was a workaholic who sometimes worked 13-hour days. I'm like, that's not what he was doing. He had a trap door.
Yeah.
Somebody said, "Our child used to play at his house. This has made us feel physically sick."
Yeah.
Yikes.
Duh.
Really scary. An acquaintance said, "A lot of people are really upset about it because they liked him and now they just don't know what to think. So it's almost that feeling of like, oh, I never sensed anything off about this person." And how scary is that like,
it makes you wonder about yourself. Like, oh, if I never felt fear around him and I should have, who else should I not trust?
Yeah, like, and you don't that way you don't trust your own instincts at that point. It's like, or you question your own instincts. Like, I never thought anything was wrong. So it's a little unsettling for a lot of people. People in his own family were like utterly shocked by this news. They had no idea about it. When he met his current wife, by the time he had met his current wife, Pat, he had already stopped his crime, so there was no way she could have like accidentally
saw him sneaking in or something.
Exactly. So he had already stopped, and in the years since then, he had not done anything to arouse suspicion as far as like getting arrested or anything like that. He actually spent so much time at work that he had apparently little time for outside hobbies. So like he was either at work or at home. So his wife never thought like, what's he doing out there?
Right.
And it makes sense now that he had all this stuff at his office. So it's like he didn't need to go anywhere. His brother-in-law, so his wife's brother, John Willis, said that Pat was under extreme stress, obviously, as a result of the situation. She didn't know what the hell to make of it. She was like, this is my husband. Like, I had never had any reason to question him. And her brother, so his brother-in-law, said, Quote, "It has taken everyone completely by surprise. He is such a well-respected man that it takes your breath away. I have known him for 22 years through my sister." 22 years. That's like...
I can't imagine knowing someone for even 5 years and having them so...
No!
I mean, how long have I known
I was gonna
you?
say, how long have we known each other? Can you imagine?
No.
No. So it's like... And you, especially if you're family, you live together, it's like... The fact that you would just have no idea, it must be so traumatizing to, like, learn this about somebody.
Imagine if you, like, found this out about Blaze, like,
I know.
10 years into your marriage.
And we've been married, like, 1 year almost. Like, I can't fathom 22 years. And so he continued to say, "There was no indication about this guy whatsoever that he had any interest in anything other than being Mr. Boring, pipe and slippers.
Pipe and slippers.
He didn't even go out for a drink. Words fail me." So, like, this guy didn't even have vices that they knew of. Like, they were like, he's so boring. He's just an everyday guy. Like, goes to work, goes home, watches TV, goes to bed.
Like, just so blends in with society.
Yep. Pipe and slippers. That's what I always say.
Pipe and slippers.
Oh, God. So, if you know a guy like that, careful. He said, "If you were to paint a picture of someone who would not commit that sort of crime, it would be my brother-in-law. That part of his character was like a closed book. He was a workaholic with few outside interests." So, point being, this is how people saw him. This is how shocking this was to the community and his own family. It's not even like a neighbor being like, "Oh, well, like, I never knew." It's like
his own wife.
Yeah. So once he was arrested, he said, "I was a bastard 20 years ago. I knew this would happen." He admitted raping a 21-year-old woman in December of 1983, a 21-year-old woman in October 1984, an 18-year-old woman in December 1984, an 18-year-old in August 1986. He also admitted 2 attempted rapes in February 1983 and June 2004, attempted, but denied stealing a pair of black and gold stilettos from a woman in October 1982 that they had...
That's where he draws the line.
Yeah, he's like,
okay.
I didn't want those shoes. No. And he also denied another attempted rape that they had tried to pin on him. So officially only 4 victims came forward. Police have stated they believe Lloyd may have had as many as 120 victims. Yeah.
Wow, that takes a jump.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big
okay.
jump, right. So 4 were like the confirmed step forward, and he admitted to them. And then they said based on the shoes, not all of them were worn, but like a lot of them were clearly worn by people before. And again, he could have purchased those as well.
Sure.
But just based on what they found, they believe he could have had up to 120 victims. It was probably not that high, but even half of that, like it's even 4, but it's just very scary. So not everyone has come forward, they believe. So Lloyd was 50 at the time of his trial. He apparently sobbed in court as he heard his sentence. It was life in prison. Then he was told he would spend 14 and a half years in jail, but his time was later cut to 7 years and 263 days, and he is now out. So that didn't last very long.
Oh my God.
Several of Lloyd's victims attended the trial, and as he was led out of the courtroom by 2 security officers, one of his victims shouted, "Rot in hell."
Okay.
Yeah, agree. Because of the shortened jail sentence of about 7 years, which was handed down in 2006, he's been out for, I don't know, like 5-6 years now.
Is his wife still with him?
I don't know. I couldn't find anything. I think they'd like really pulled themselves out of... But
Gotcha.
she was with him, like during at least the time of the trial when all the news was coming out, she was definitely with him still.
Okay.
But
who knows now?
I couldn't find anything about now. That being said, Lloyd's arrest and conviction, even though he's out now, is now hailed as the biggest success using familial profiling. Well, probably not since Golden State Killer, but
sure.
One of the biggest, at least probably in the UK. In fact, while the technique, which costs around €5,000 per search, isn't used routinely at this point yet, it's believed that this case directly could influence the use of familial profiling and lead to much more widely implemented use. So they said, even though this guy got out, hopefully the fact that this worked so well will like convince funding for this type of research and hopefully use it on many more cases in the future. We've noticed that even in the US, like cases are reopening finally from like decades ago. And hopefully we're getting closer to catching the Zodiac.
Yay!
Scientists also expect DNA technology, obviously, to advance in the next few years. Leicester University academics are working on ways to predict surnames, so last names from DNA, which is really interesting. So basically what they do is they study the DNA on the basis that many people sharing the same last name have the same distant heritage and genetic similarities. So they can try and narrow down like what someone's last name could be based on their DNA.
Get out. That's
Isn't
pretty
that
cool.
Crazy? I just said
it's like Ancestry.com and but using their DNA in a very different way.
Like murder crime. I don't know.
I don't like it.
I don't like it at all.
I mean, but I love it.
But it's great.
A lot of opinions there.
Sorry.
It's spooky ooky.
It is spooky ooky. I'll give you that. Yeah. No, it's very good, but it's definitely like it's a little crazy and scary how like technology is able to do that, but also
I'm terrified every day of how I'm like, I mean, granted, I have never done anything that I know of as an illegal crime, but I'm terrified of the technology that hasn't actually shown up yet, that I'm going to get like busted for something.
Yeah,
like,
you never know.
I've already decided in my like paranoid state that I've committed thousands of like bloody crimes.
I'm glad that you're admitting it on air. They're going to cut that part out and use it in your trial.
I can't, to date, I can't think of anything, but I've already decided I must be responsible for everything. And one day technology is going to come and like, I'm going to get framed. I don't know what's going to happen.
But when people get really scared about that, I'm like, dude, everyone is being tracked. Like, I know when people are oh, Facebook knows what I'm saying. I'm like, what you're saying is probably not that interesting, Aunt Jane. Like, when my aunt is like, oh, that's a made-up name to protect identities because Aunt Jane thinks that literally the government is tracking her every move. And I'm like, you're a stay-at-home mom with a 3-year-old, and you just go to, like, quilting on the weekends.
I think the government is tracking our every move in case they ever need
but, like,
it. But they're not listening
right now. If it doesn't matter, like, right. I'm like, they're not looking at you. They're looking at, like, ISIS member. You know what I mean? I'm like...
Also, the second that time travel exists and cops can use that to go back to exact moments and find out when things happened, everyone is in trouble. When, like, any criminal is in trouble.
You don't think it already exists?
I do, but I'm trying to sound a little more, like, coherent.
For your trial. Your characters.
I'm trying to pretend that I have some competency.
Anyway. Sorry, still recording. Yeah, point being, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's really great because they are really catching people now and like using this for the betterment of society. But it is crazy, you know,
that it can happen.
Yeah, 20 years ago, like this was absurd to even think that this could be possible. And now they're like predicting people's last names based on their DNA, which is just
fascinating
to me. I didn't change my last name, so they're not going to catch me.
Hey. You're just connected genetically to Bernie Schieffer.
Oh, wait. I guess that doesn't make sense. So I should change my name, and then maybe they won't connect. Okay, forget it.
Actually, just change your name to something totally different.
And we're both going to end up in jail together. I think we knew this from day one. So
and that's why we hope we get out early.
That's why we drink toilet wine.
Hooch. Yes.
That finally I'll get you to drink with me. Hopefully.
Look,
if that's what it takes, I'll bring you to jail.
If I ever end up locked up for something, I'll drink some hooch.
Yay.
Fingers crossed I never do, though.
Fingers crossed we get there.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. This is not funny. Okay.
I'm so paranoid.
We are not criminals. Thank God. Listen, we'd be the worst criminals. If we were criminals, you would have figured it out by now. Just trust me.
We don't even know what salt is made of. We don't even know when the Civil War is.
We don't know much about anything.
We don't know shapes. How on earth could we cover that kind of stuff?
You can't expect that from us.
One day the Inquirer will put out a story about us like being some wild like genius criminals.
Sure.
And I'll let it happen.
And we'll let it happen. We'll
You're
finally
right,
be famous. Okay. I'm so sorry. They were pillars of the community. See, that's the other thing. We're not pillars of the community, so we couldn't be anything.
Yeah, we don't blend in well.
We don't blend in. Okay, sorry. I'm going to get back to the story now. So, they're basically trying to get people's last names. There's also research being conducted into identifying racial features, stature, and eye color from DNA to be able to create a better profile of who an attacker might be. So this case actually inspired a novel called Dead Like You by former crime reporter Phil Turner. And when he was interviewed, he explained why he wrote the book, saying, quote, "Many of our worst monsters don't walk around with the words rapist or serial killer tattooed on their foreheads. They wear suits and spectacles. They are often successful professionals or businessmen, most of them with adoring wives and children and viewed by their friends and neighbors as pillars of their community." And I think that is something interesting to keep in mind. We always say trust your gut, and 100% do that. But also, you can't necessarily trust everyone. Maybe that's just me being paranoid, but there are people monsters hiding in plain sight. And this
wolf in sheep's skin.
Exactly. And this is one perfect example of that. And that is the story of James Lloyd, the Rotherham Shoe Rapist. And because I used so many quotes and I didn't want to put them all within the text because it was just a lot, I just want to add the sources that I used were The Sun, Mirror, Metro, The Guardian, BBC, Yorkshire Post, Telegraph, and Rotherham Advertiser, because there were a lot of quotes in there about pillars of the community. And I had a lot of tabs open.
Great.
So that's that.
Thank you for that.
I can finally delete that off my freaking bookmarks list.
Thank God. Well,
that's
that on
one
that.
story about Trapdoor. Not a fun one, though.
Well, I wish I had a nice anecdote to end this on, but I don't think I do.
Some people have sent in new suggestions for, like, endings. They said maybe we read, like, a listener story, but that just adds so much more work, having, we're not usually that well prepared. We could do that.
No, we're not. I know it seems like we have our shit together. We don't, though.
This green screen is very, very deceiving.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. What should we talk about?
I don't know. I mean, I guess we can just say bye. Oh, just kidding. I'm sorry.
List where they can find us.
Oh, right.
If they're new.
I don't know how we still don't know how to do this podcast.
If you want to find us on social media, we are on on Twitter and Instagram at ATWWD Podcast. We have a website, and that's why we drink.com, where you can find all of our goodies and information and fun stuff.
Go find our goodies.
You can also find our YouTube if you are not currently watching it at youtube.com/c/ATWWD Podcast.
YouTube.com/c/and that's why we drink.
Oh, LOL.
LOL.
Sweet. What else is going on? We have an email, and that's why we drink at gmail.com, where you can send in your personal true crime and paranormal listener stories, and they will go into the running for potentially being read in our next listeners episode.
I believe we're trying to do doppelgangers this time, so we'll see. If you guys have any good ones, send them in.
And we always post our listeners, our monthly listeners episode on the first of every month. I think that's it.
I think that's it, guys. Thank you for listening. Hopefully I figured out the audio. I know everyone's yelling about the audio. Listen, it's a learning curve.
We told you.
We're trying.
Look, we told you in episode 1 on YouTube that it was only going to get better. And then the next time you tuned in, we had a green screen.
And everyone's like, well, where's the audio? And I said,
look, beggars can't be choosers. We're going to get there.
Someone
just
was
give us a
like
second.
yelling. I woke up to this comment about the audio and I just wrote back, I'm trying. And then I just closed the app. So I probably just yelled at someone and I'm sorry. But
it's
trying.
It's going to get done. Everything's going to look and sound so much better, just step by step, day by day.
That's at least what we tell ourselves before we go to bed to make ourselves sleep.
That's the truth.
So anyway, thanks for listening / watching, guys. We are so happy you're here with us. And that's
Why
we
drink.
Bye.